Welcome to this episode of Faithfully Podcast, the flagship podcast of Faithfully Magazine, owned and operated by Faithfully Media. In this episode, Faithfully Magazine's managing editor Nicola A. Menzies speaks with Paul Searstad and Mohali Masuku about their new series, Testament, streaming exclusively on Angel Studios. We talk about Paul's vision for the biblical series' modern setting, Mohali's fascination with Mary Magdalene, making the cast intentionally diverse, and much more. Let's listen in.
How many more radicals are there?
I don't know.
Yes! They didn't sound like ordinary men, Prime Minister.
They sounded like him.
Well, welcome, Paul Searstad, creator, producer, and director of Testament, and also Magdalene Masuku, who plays Mary of Magdala in the new hit series. I believe that's exclusively streaming on Angel Studios. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks, Nicola.
Of course. Well, first off, how does it feel to have this project finally out in the world and for people to love it?
Bit bizarre, to be honest. It's very. I've always kind of explained it as a strange thing. Filmmaking. You start with very few of you in this writing process, and I wrote the show with Faith Searstad and Kenneth Amole, who Faith is my wife and Kenneth is my brother-in-law. So it's like the three of us, this little family unit, writing it, and then you get a crew and a cast together, and then you edit it. But it's still very private, and then it becomes that moment where you share it out with the world, and suddenly it's not very private at all. It's very public, but that's the joy in it. It is exciting. It's scary, but that's the fun bit, really.
Okay. And how about you, Magali?
It's wonderful. Can you hear the sirens going?
Not
here?
at all. You're
It's
fine.
like, wow. That's how it feels. It's really like, because when we were making it, it was everything about getting cast in Testament and making it and being on set and then watching it. Because when you're filming, you film in like blocks and you film out of sequence and you don't know what things are going to look like and you imagine what things are going to look like. And I know because I write as well, like you write and you see this and then just going to the premiere and then getting to watch the episode, it's like, oh, wow, we made a thing. We made a thing. And it's really, it's a really good show.
Yes, I
It's
second that
really-
opinion.
It's like, thank you. So it's really wonderful to be able to say that as well and like mean it, not just because it's wonderful because you worked with wonderful people, because that's what you do when you've done other things. You remember the people that you worked with, and that's wonderful. This is the whole thing. It's amazing.
All right. And so, Paul, I'm wondering, there are loads of movies and TV shows on the Old Testament and Old Testament figures, and maybe, twice as many on the Nativity and, Jesus's life. But I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong because this is your field, but I feel like there are probably way less such movies on the Acts of the Apostles, particularly, keeping them together as a group and maybe looking at that pivotal moment on the day of Pentecost. So why did you choose Acts, and also why a modern setting?
Yeah, there aren't many. I think I think I'm aware of two, but they're quite back in the day of other shows or movies that are around the Book of Acts. So yeah, it's definitely not told as much. And actually, people who read their Bibles, funnily enough, it's a portion where everyone goes, "Oh, the road to Damascus bit," but that's a really small section in an otherwise great book. But yeah, it's probably good to say that we are reimagining this narrative in this alternate modern setting. So we're telling the same story as the Book of Acts, but it is with an aesthetic difference. So there's modern clothing, modern buildings, kind of. It's this weird, different, alternate world.
European.
Yeah. Alternate is a good way to kind of go. for it. But why the Book of Acts is, I think it's one of the most dangerous, exciting, thrilling books that there is to make a TV show out of. I don't think you can do it in a film. I think it's way too big to do as a movie. It's too the scope of it is enormous. But really, for like believers today, for people who do know the story, we are Acts chapter 29. There are 28 chapters in the book of Acts. We're the continuation of the story. The idea is the book of Acts is kind of going, what happened next? After Jesus's ministry, after he died, rose again, ascended, what happened next? And that is the same world that we're living in now. We are the what is still happening next. And so to explore this in this alternate world gives kind of adds in that question back again. What happens next? What should continue to happen next for us as believers? For those who don't believe, how do we interact with this story? How do we find out about this story? And ultimately, the person that this entire story is pointing to. There's a whole host of reasons why in a modern setting, but I won't bore you with too many of them. I know our time is short.
Well, I definitely like that setting, that feel, that vibe, and it kind of takes you into kind of the feeling of like maybe not the Hunger Games exactly, but maybe the Divergent. You know what I mean? Where you kind of have this oppressive setting where society is kind of, upside down or backwards. And it definitely makes it feel more exciting, I think. So good move on that.
Yeah,
Um,
but it is like, with a lot of these worlds, when you enter the New Testament, there's a history there already. And that's the same way that when you enter shows like, as you mentioned, Hunger Games or Divergent, you don't enter fresh. You enter with like, I think, what is it? Hunger Games, it's like the 73rd annual, fourth annual. So there's 74 years of something, and you get to learn about the history as you go. And it invites the audience to engage in an intellectual way, in a hey, we're going to just tell you things, and you're not going to know everything that we're talking about. But as you consume, as you watch, you'll become more and more familiar with this world.
yeah,
And
and
also,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I just say, and also it's much more accessible. And because what happens as believers again, and also as non-believers, is the Bible becomes stories and becomes myth and legend. But
Mm.
if it's now people that you can recognize in a setting that's familiar, suddenly
Yeah.
Peter's not denying Christ in a story that you've heard from 2000 years ago. Now you're understanding the pressures of a man who's married, who's given up everything and is now at the crux of a moment. And suddenly you're a person because and suddenly you empathize, but not with Peter, you empathize with yourself. And these stories become more alive. So all the stories that you mentioned, like the Hunger Games and Divergent, watching those films, you do set yourself as one of the characters in the story because something pulls you in. So that's the benefit of setting it in a sort of in a modern setting and in a dystopian way where it's recognizable, but sort of unrecognizable because it is you. These are people now. They're not legends or, for some people, idols or a story. These are people.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. But I did notice the intentional choice. And I mean, obviously, there are reasons for that. But no one pulled out a cell phone, Paul. Why is that?
No digital revolution. That is the major change of this world. And I think it's the answer for why we have gone with this alternate modern day. I don't think you can say faithful to the main spirit and storyline of the Book of Acts in a digital revolution. There's a famous person in history called Paul the Apostle who wrote a lot of letters, and he would have a different reputation. He'd be that auntie that spams you with WhatsApp messages, forwarding prayers many times. It would be the second draft of the Corinthians over Gmail. It doesn't have the feel. You'd be able to call up Peter, being like, "Hey, there's danger coming your way." you need an analog world to carry the analog sense of danger. And so we've removed the digital revolution from this world. And the reason being is, we have to have the Roman Empire still in control. So there's been less wars because they've continued with an oppressive power. I'm not saying there's not oppression, there's just less all-out wars. And so, that suddenly begets a limitation of technology. It's probably the only positive thing outcome that wars have. Wars create technology for military that then get passed down to civilians. So without that, we suddenly limit our world a little bit. So it means we can tell the aesthetic difference, but yes, no mobile phones. And don't us like millennials and older, just part of us, we really want to go back to that world. No phones. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to mention there probably, like it's a key aspect, especially for one of the central characters you focus on, Stephen, that, his whole thing and kind of the overarching element for this community that's growing, believing without seeing. And,
Hmm.
someone pulled up a cell phone pic of Jesus appearing to the disciples. That would have just ruined everything. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
there's no image capturing technology either. So there's no cameras or
right,
recording
right,
devices. That's all gone too for exactly that reason.
right.
Seeing without believing a generated photo, that's a whole different story again.
Of course, of course. Magali, were you going to say something?
No, no, I was just laughing at that. It just,
Ah,
and also I was gonna say like an AI, then it would take us into the world of AI and videos. No, there's just no need for that. There's no need.
all right. So, Paul, I was wondering, like, in terms of filming, you mentioned you wrote this series. It's an 8 episode series with your wife Faith and I believe your brother-in-law Kenneth, who also stars in the series.
It
So,
does.
as a director, in terms of directing the cast and also, being one of the writers and having ideas in your head of what you wanted to capture and what you definitely wanted the audience to see and feel. How did you kind of work out that tension? Because you're directing, a whole slew of people, but you're holding in your head, maybe what you envisioned when you were creating this series.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think strangely, filmmaking is an onslaught of small sacrifices. Um, you're never going to be able to get everything you want, and you kind of have to choose. And that's really from when you start pre-production and realize you can't afford that location, or you can't. We were very scrappy. Our budget was not big at all, so we had to be quite inventive with how we did cameras and how we did certain angles and things like that. We used a weird camera to be able to achieve some of the stuff that we did. And then whilst you're filming, we don't have enough time in the day. Whilst you're editing, some of my favorite scenes had to get cut because it just the episode didn't quite work with it. And so it's an onslaught of small sacrifices being cut 1,000 times, but it's for the service of the story. I mean, I love working with actors. I trained as an actor. It's where I met my ooh, goodness me. It's where I met my wife. That was a lot of M's and W's there. I struggled. But that's so I really enjoy working with actors, going through scenes. We had rehearsal process as well, which we don't normally get to do on like a TV show. So Mokhadi will be able to tell you we did 4 weeks of rehearsals, and that was great because as Mokhadi said, we're shooting in out of order so much. It was important to try at least once to have some kind of chronological go through as much as possible, go through the majority of the scenes. I mean, Mokhadi, I don't know, rehearsals useful? What do you think?
Nah. Yes. Absolutely yes. They're absolutely necessary. That's the thing about filming that is being lost because of like money that is painful because you do need to get into the world. You do need to go through of the world. And Paul is one of few directors that still kind of insists that he sets the budget to do that with everyone. And it's wonderful because it's very disorienting as an actor to go you can do it, and it's part of the job to get the character, get your sides, and get your story, and then go build the character and come back and film that day. Because in some jobs, I've done that. You come in for that day, they want you for half an hour. They've given you the character, they've given you the lines, they've given you the scenario. Go away. Then you come back, do that for half an hour, and then you just never see
Yeah.
them again. But those 4 weeks helped us kind of layer on the story and understand, and then also crucially, which is maybe what's sort of misunderstood in the money side of things in other places, is it helps build the work, builds the collaborative unit that's making the work. Because now we filmed, for instance, we filmed our world, and the priesthood filmed their world. We never saw each other. We were ships that passed in the night. We never saw each other. If we hadn't had that 4 weeks, it would have been so discombobulating for everybody. And then when we're sitting there in the cinema together, watching the premiere of the first 2 episodes, it was so amazing to see them and for them to see us. And it's all, but that's because of the layering work that's done in the first 4 weeks. And that's something that can't be taken away, because it's ultimately filming is making a play on screen. So you do need, for a rehearsal process, it was absolutely essential.
And I
And
think we're doing a different show, a different world. Like I mean, you've seen the show, Nicola. It's a little odd sometimes. It's like I don't know quite where to place this. It's biblical, it's not, it's old, it's new. And so like if you're jumping into, I don't know, a Marvel movie, you kind of know what that is. You know the style, you know the effect, but this is brand new. So I think especially for the actors and for me as a director to kind of find the voice and find the style and tone, at least from the acting point of view. And of course, there's different style and tone from a technical point of view as well. But yeah, hugely helpful.
Yeah, Testament definitely breaks the mold, even with just the look. And I love, it's brilliant how you decide to enter us into this world through the perspective of Stephen. And, I'm sure I'm not alone. He's one of those figures in the New Testament you always kind of wonder about, the first martyr of the faith. And it doesn't really give his background, but, it says he's a guy full of faith and, God was working through him. And he dies. He dies in what would have been, I guess, a really horrible way, but it seems like he didn't experience maybe the physical pain or aspect of it. So how did you kind of decide, you, Faith, and Kenneth, that you know what, let's open this up with Stephen? Like, what were you thinking there?
Well, the Book of Acts presents a problem if you're going to start a story there, which is it immediately has all these main characters, the apostles, the women who follow Jesus, the priests, like all these people have already experienced the main event. They already know, and they already have witnessed or not witnessed, or like being at the crucifixion. Like it's all happened in the past, and so because we're not expecting all audiences to know the Bible story, we needed somebody to be the avatar for someone watching, for the avatar to learn about the story, to learn about the apostles, to meet everyone, one by one, slowly, and to almost experience the same things that I think probably a lot of new believers face. Which is those experiences of doubt, those experiences of hope, reconciliation. For some places around the world, being thrown out of your home or being completely cut off from your family for following Jesus, like that's a reality. And we're quite blessed a lot of the times in countries where, at least the country I'm in, that doesn't happen so much, but it does at other places. So, but this character, if we made this character like a random person, like, Steve, Steve doesn't have quite the tie
history.
to the main bit, yeah, the history to the biblical record. So we needed someone that was going to start with us and end with us and be able to tell that full journey. And Stephen, of course, we were introduced to him in the Bible when he's voted in, when he's like chosen as one to be one of the leaders. But to be one of the leaders, you would have had to have done some things in the past, and to have done some things in the past, you would have had to start on day one. So for us, yeah, we invented a backstory that might be plausible, that could be, as if Stephen learns about the story of Jesus on the day of Pentecost, which is the first day our story starts. So unlike most shows that would do the Book of Acts, we don't start in the upper room. We don't start in the most famous place for this story. We start in Stephen's home. We start in the streets, and we start from his perspective in the courtyard looking up. So yeah, it's to ride those different internal conversations that we have as people learning about the story through Stephen. And then on the other side of that, of course, we experience the temple, the priesthood, through the other set of eyes, which is Saul of Tarsus, which again, we've done the same thing. You know, he is introduced a lot later in the story, but if you just had a random guy at the end, at the moment where he appears, wouldn't have the same impact. So we knew that we had to bring these two in at the same time, and they would be our eyes to tell the story.
All right, and you don't need me to tell you that, but excellent choices there.
Thank
Very
you.
But
captivating.
and also I would say also as like a mem like as a member of the audience watching, it's also useful because it de-Christianizes the language around Stephen and the apostles. Suddenly he wasn't martyred, he was murdered because that's what
Mm.
happened to him. He was murdered. And the people who murdered him are people who watched him grow up. Like now the perspective, because it's actually in the Book of Acts. He grew up. So like you read all these things and suddenly these people, it kind of makes it go, and you're watching it with people who haven't read the Bible, haven't grown up in the church, and then you've grown up in the church and you're watching it, and all the stories we were told as children, like he's an example of the kind of faith you should have. And now you understand why is an example of the kind of faith you should have, because you have the similar struggles and stuff. But also now you have people who have an old relationship with the Lord and with the Bible, and they're going back to read the Bible, going, "Oh wait, I missed that. Is that true?" Reading it and going, "Oh yeah, that part isn't made up. The other part is, but this isn't." And that's all very like tangible and edible for the audience. And these,
Yeah, yeah.
It's easy to experience these stories with what's it called in hindsight.
Mhm.
When you're familiar with the Bible stories, you can often read going, "Oh, look at that! Isn't that amazing? Because that created this,
Mhm.
or that made this happen." But it's one of the large themes of the Bible is that what the enemy intended for evil, God made for good, which is kind of, you see that in even Joseph's story all the way back then. But when Joseph was thrown down, bloodied, and his kind of brothers wanted him dead, I don't think at that point he was going, "Oh, for the glory of God." It was going, "Ow, this hurts." And so even with the New Testament, we often try and look in hindsight, but actually there's a great exercise to go, let's imagine I don't know what the next verse is. That's a
Mhm.
really hard way to experience it. And it's how we experience life, and it's how we as storytellers have to go with a story, not put the glory on, or the worthiness or the majesty on beforehand. But that's something that's learnt afterwards, going, "Oh, God was working in this all along." Yeah, of course he's 90,000 steps ahead of me. That's to be expected.
Right, right. And I want to touch on this before, while we have time. So the diversity of the background figures makes sense since people are in Salem for like a big Jewish holiday, Shavuot, and the Bible tells us that everyone heard the disciples speaking in their own language. But in terms of the key cast, right? I don't know how involved you were in that, Paul, but. Did you
Fully.
have already in your mind as you all were writing, this is what the key cast should look like?
So I keep on using a phrase, but it's often confusing to people. I say open casting. I don't mean like anyone apply. It just was like we're looking for the best actors to play the roles. Um, there's a few people that I had in mind in terms of, oh, I don't know, when I write them, I see them like this, but was very willing to be wrong, or like for someone else to just blow it away. But what we really wanted to have is that and I think Mukhadi, you spoke about this on another interview really well, but it was to reflect the global church. You know, Christianity is not some Western religion. It didn't start there. It doesn't belong there. Like, and also the global majority of people and Christians don't look like me. And so why should they on screen all the time? Like, it doesn't make sense. So we wanted to reflect the diversity of the global church. But also the Jewish diasporas. You know, if we look at the Jewish diaspora today, you have, and I'm sorry, I might get some of these words wrong, but Ashkenazi, Falasha, Mizrahi, Sephardi, like these are all different people groups that belong to the Jewish people. But, you know, there is a huge diversity in the Jewish people. So we kind of go, right, there was diversity back then anyway, because all these people were coming in to celebrate the festival, and they were Jewish and they were from all these places, not just, you know, here and there. But if we take it further, and if this is an alternate modern day for now, then the Jewish diaspora again is equally like bigger. So we honestly, we just were like, this should reflect the world that we're in now, more than anything else.
So Makali, how did this character, Mary of Magdala, how did she get on your radar? How did you get involved with the project?
So it's okay, Mohadi. I'm just gonna say
Mohadi.
that. Just work it. No. It's fine.
Thank you. I told you I would mess up your name. I'm so sorry.
I know. That's why I was like, wait.
Please feel free.
Yeah. Mary got on my radar when I was a little girl, actually, when I was in the Church of Christ in Bulawayo, and the pastor was talking about her, and he was describing her as a woman who was a temptress. And I was just like, and I was, yeah, I told, that's why I say, like, I instantly was looking like, what? So I think I was about 7 years old. I think I was 7, and I didn't know what that was, but I knew it was not true. But I hadn't read, I'd only by that point read the little Bible books they give us, like this is Jesus, this is Paul, the little ones. And I hadn't read, and the only Mary one I'd read was on Mary, the mother of Jesus. But when he started talking about this Mary and how you have to resist, he was talking about a sermon about resisting temptation and how there's a reward in that. And he used Mary as an example of like how she spent her life paying penance for how she was. And I was instinctively, I felt so strongly like to defend her and protect her because it felt wrong. And then I've ever since then, reading the Bible and getting to know, I have in the Bible found no story about her other than Jesus cast out 7 demons from her. She met him, like he was the first clear thought she had post that. She saw him, she said, right, you are God, that's it for the rest of my life. I'm dedicating it to walking with you. And she did it. She kept her word, which is admirable. And also, when we think about it in a historical context, she kept her word in a time where it wasn't the church. These were Jewish people who were being murdered for betraying the faith and also for being Jewish. So she and other women like her held the church together when initially the ones who were being killed were the men. So they killed the apostles. So it would have been the women holding it down, and also people were meeting in women's houses. As we go further into the book of Acts, we meet so many more women, Phoebe, all these women who made sure that there were churches, that there were meeting rooms in their home, made sure that people, and Paul famously goes from saying women shouldn't speak in the church to going, well, this is my fellow worker. So she came to me from the perspective of, as a girl, God has as much use for me as he does for my brother, for everybody else. And then how she came onto my radar this time around is Faith and I met when we were doing a R&D for something else. And then that was our first meeting and our souls went. And then we became friends. And then I got an audition come through. And then I was looking at it. I was like, wait, I think this is my friend. And so I taped for it. I didn't even talk to her about it. I was like, I can't call her and say I'm taping. I just taped for it and I went, okay. And then I think I did another. No, did I have another tape or I had a recall?
No, tape and then a recall.
I had a recall. And then in the recall, my agent said, you're meeting Paul. I was like, what? I already knew him. And I was like, oh, I have to, this is work. This isn't friend. This is work. But already, you see how it felt just comfortable and just like how making is and should be in my opinion, where it should be people coming together to play and make something and then offer it to the world, as Paul was saying, like slice it up and then let the world see it and decide what it is. So it feels like it was always meant to be, as you were just saying, Paul. In hindsight, God was always going, yeah. And for me, I kind of went into like an alter. It was a surreal thing for me. It was after we filmed, months later, when I was sitting down and I reflected on the fact that when I was 7 years old, he put this love for her inside of me, and then I got to play her. I was sitting there and I just started sobbing, and it's like, you're so amazing,
Wow.
because I was a baby, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you shared a bit there about what you kind of, I guess, put together from the historical Mary. But tell us
Mhm.
about Mary in the Testament. She seems almost
Yeah.
kind of like a loner and maybe a little bit emotionally distant. I don't know. But she's also very nurturing and very bold. So tell us about your Mary a little bit.
Mary is she Yeah, she is a loner in, and I think we'll find out more of this about is her main thing is she believes very much in the worth of everyone else, like each individual person. And for some reason that doesn't apply to her. So she does not, she is she is willing to give all. Um, I was reading something a while this like she I imagine her saying, I am given to Jesus, saying, I am given, I'm yours. And that was it. And that's the Mary we have in Testament. She was given. So she fights. You see her fighting for Dana and the girls. But before that, in the before of that, you can see with how she moves with the apostles, with the other apostles and everything, that they know when it comes down to it, Mary. And also don't cross Mary.
Yeah, Mary, I was gonna cuss there. I'm sorry. Mary's a baddie.
Yeah, she
You
is.
see her standing up to, by herself, standing up to these big, bad, violent guys,
Yeah.
and she's not really afraid.
No, she's not. And I think, and it's interesting to explore her because when we're doing the work with Paul and stuff, it's just the backstory and also from the Bible, seven demons are no joke. Surviving seven demons, what can man do to me? But then also on top of that, like realistically, this person knew Jesus personally. This person knew God personally. Like the John writes in the Bible that there were so many more miracles that Jesus performed that they couldn't write about them because if they did, then they'd just never stop writing. They just wrote these so that you would believe that Jesus is God. So just the thought of that, like every single moment of every single day being like, by the time some big captain, some big captain of the God comes up to you like, man, I have seen God. Calm yourself. Just calm yourself. But also,
Yeah.
is scared. She is. But there's this kind of every time for me, for playing her, every time fear tries to take hold, she falls back into him all the time, just falls back into him and falls back into the mission. What is the mission? Go into the world. What is the mission? Yeah. But
I think
Paul's right. uh,
there's
no?
nothing on Mary Magdalene after the Gospels. She's not mentioned in the Book of Acts. She's not mentioned in the rest of the New Testament,
Mm.
which gives us um, which gives us a nice blank slate of going, what would the little that we do know about Mary, um, what might this woman still be doing at this point? what might she, if it was this alternate modern day, what would a woman like that with, an inferred history, we don't know much about it at all, um, where might she feel her calling is? I find like a lot of the time when people find faith in Jesus, they're almost sent back to where they were found, because that's where their ministry lies. Not
Yeah,
always,
the apostle.
obviously, but yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
the time. And so we kind of got to ask some of these questions with Mary, and go and really use her as a different kind of avatar of going, what do people have to face today? What do people have to, yeah, struggle with today? What might be on our street corners or on our in our cities that we aren't ministering into, that we're being called to? And then, yeah, as Mukhari said, that is that really hard tension to explain, but what we really want to explore and continue to explore with Mary, which is you are saved and you are loved and you're called to go out and sacrifice yourself almost, to pour yourself out, and yet you are still saved and loved. And the worth doesn't disappear from you just because you go and try and save others. But I think that little tension is really hard to wrap our heads around, because we kind of go, I'm willing to give it all, and yet it's already been given for you. It's
Right.
such a hard, like,
Yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, I struggle to describe it, but it's something that I'm really, Faith, Kenneth, and I are really interested in exploring further in future seasons. And Mohari is definitely the perfect person to do it.
Oh, thanks.
Just a, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just like, oh, thanks. And also, this is the woman that challenged Jesus. Remember, like in the Bible, it says like she was crying outside the tomb because she thought they stole his body. And she saw the gardener and she's like, give me his body. I won't tell anyone. That's the woman we're talking about.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
it's there on the pages as well. Mary
Yeah, on the
wasn't
pages.
a scaredy cat. She was
Look at
bold
I
when it came to Jesus.
yes,
And
absolutely.
gardeners,
And
And
gardeners.
yes,
yeah,
yes, let's not forget that.
no gardener's going to step in our way.
No.
So I'm wondering for this is for the both of you. I believe you all filmed, like you said, you had 4 weeks of rehearsals, and then you filmed for, was it maybe like 2 to 3 months, something like that? So
Or
I'm wondering, any memorable moments, any takeaways for you? Do you feel like, I don't know, you changed in some ways? I don't know. Anything coming out of this experience of creating this project from beginning to launch?
I got more grey hairs. That happened.
We did
That's
that. Yay. I mean, oh no.
um, don't know. Yes, but I can't. Thing is, we've only really just finished, a month or two ago, because it's been it's been mad in the edit and the post production as well. I think I'm still recovering, and I think I'm still kind of processing a lot of it. Um, yeah, it's quite. I don't. We shouldn't. We really shouldn't have been able to make what we made. Really, like the size and scope of this show is just enormous. And I know whenever I talk about the budget to other producers and stuff, and they go, yeah, that's decent. We did that for that. I was like, yeah, but that had 5 characters. We have 140 locations. It's not. We're not talking about the same thing here. And they're like, oh yeah, true. Um, so I really, only by the grace of God has this been managed to be made.
Hmm.
It's been incredible, just leaning on people, leaning on God, leaning on how this has all come together. I think everyone's poured in a lot more than initially asked for, because otherwise it wouldn't be this. So I'm just very grateful to everyone for it.
Yeah. On the other end of that, on the I don't know if I'm one of the people that poured in, and but I'm gonna speak as if I am. Uh it's because it was a constant cycle of pouring in and out. That's amazing to work in that kind of place. And also it's made my faith slowly more audacious. I think it is. And then I start to have like a quiver, like I'm asking and I'm waiting for things. And I'm like, and then I notice that I'm doubting or I'm fearful or whatever. But because of this process and how it is and was and has been and all that sort of stuff, it just makes me kind of look at God with more of like in look him in the face expectation. You say, you know, the verse says, "Come boldly to the throne of grace." And so it's made me more bold. My dreams have always been bold. I've just never I've never expected them to come true. I've hoped they would, but I've never expected it. And the process of working like this kind of it's made me go all the things I've seen and heard and even listening to Paul talk about the post-production and all this sort of stuff, everything. And watching the show itself, considering how we were working, watching it, I'm like to God, but if you also Vele, you can. So me, I don't understand why I have to ask 16 times because obviously, God, you can do. Obvious. It's
I think,
obvious.
well, did you at one point you said to Faith, and you going like, I was there. We that's not what we shot. Like
Yeah.
it kind of looked like that. I know what we
I know exactly where we were when we did that. It's just so
it
yeah,
shouldn't look like
it should
that.
look
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
If the
was
t-shirt
watching. I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, if the t-shirt is made, it should be it's obvious with that accent.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the YouTube videos and I did take a look at the premiere. And yeah, I saw that, that expression and everyone was surprised that wow, we did that. But again, congratulations. Like I said, an amazing project series. And I also read, Paul, that you guys are hoping or you planned tentatively to do maybe, what is it, 4 to 5 additional seasons. And I'm already sitting here like, wow, but when's season two? So what's it going to take for at least season two to happen? What needs to fall into place?
What's that song? Money, 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 money.
I figured as much, yes.
Yeah. No, we're planning. The plan is to do, I think, 6 seasons in total at the minute. I don't want to draw anything out or rush anything. So six is tentative. Um, but I think I need that at least to do the series until in terms of the full book of Acts. And yeah, it is just it will. We are wanting to do it. We do want to do it. It just depends on finance and how quickly the finance can happen. We are in talks with certain people to see about investing in season two. But yeah,
Watch
no,
got you up.
no firm news yet, unfortunately. But
Of
um,
course.
but it is coming.
Okay, I'm going to believe that with you. And all the way up to season 5 or 6. So,
Amen.
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 all
Amen.
right. Well, thank you too for your time. I don't know if you have any parting words, anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to share, make sure people are aware of, anything coming up.
No, I would just say that and this isn't my quote. I think it's John Irwin who says you vote with what you watch. And so if you want to see shows like this, if you want to see like even just the growth of biblical media, you vote with what you watch. And so I just really invite everyone to check out the show, watch the show. You might finish episode one and go, that was a little bit weird. Stick with us. I promise it'll get there. But we're on Angel, and yeah, it's a wild ride. So strap in.
Yeah, and I will say all the most interesting people are, weird. So yeah, stick with us.
All right, absolutely. All right, thanks
Thanks
again
so
for
much.
taking time to talk. It was a pleasure having you on. And of course, I wish you all much success with this series.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Nick.
much,
Great talking
Paul.
to you.
All
Thank
right.
you.